Hey everybody, and welcome to Stock Abilities. I'm going to be covering NVIDIA and Softbank here in this video in regards to a purchase that they're nearing completion of for ARM Holdings. Softbank basically purchased ARM Holdings, the designer of microprocessors for most of the globe's smartphones 4 years ago for $32 billion. They're looking to sell it for $40 billion now. They're putting it back on the market at this point, and basically, ARM and NVIDIA have been in talks for a number of weeks with a deal north of $40 billion, possibly coming early next week. Very coincidental considering everything with triple witching and all that. Now, the chips they're talking about are not fries and they're not like potato chips. They are basically a microprocessor company in smartphones and other areas, and they've been shopped around as SoftBank works to shed its investments and raise additional capital to placate activists, investors like Elliott Management. The Japanese telco conglomerate bought ARM outright back in 2016 for $32 billion. Now those talks look like they're coming toward a conclusion, according to the Wall Street Journal. First reported that SoftBank is closing to lock in a sale to NVIDIA for cash and stock that would value ARM at $40 billion. And essentially, ARM has struggled to turn its wildly successful chip designs, which today power billions of new chips a year, into a fast growth company, and NVIDIA might be the company to help them do that. Benefit of all of this, of course, is the pre-acquisition volatility. Stock prices of potential target companies tend to rise well before a merger, and of course, the company trying to do the acquisition, that excites investors as well. So theoretically, we should see a little bit of a bump up on NVIDIA here coming into the next week. You got triple witching coming up, which also is ironic that they're going to potentially close out this big acquisition on the day that they can most maximize their premiums, when they're closing out and exercising mass amounts of contracts on that given week. And then we have the stimulus bill and some other stuff coming up here as well. But that's just something to think about. The main thing to focus here on, though, is that this is generally considered bullish. Generally speaking, Takeover suggests that the acquiring company's executive team feels optimistic about the target company's prospects for long-term earnings growth, and more broadly speaking, the influx of mergers and acquisitions activities is often viewed by investors as a positive market indicator. They're acquiring a $40 billion company that brings it into a valuable market share. If you guys aren't aware of what market share is, depending on how new of a trader you are, the portion of a market controlled by a particular company or product. So, of course, by NVIDIA acquiring this company, they're acquiring a very unique market share of that chip processing company. This could negatively affect companies like Intel and AMD and things like that. So while AMD was pushing ahead, NVIDIA was pushing harder by acquiring a massive company. It's been choppy this last week or so, kind of a consolidation phase, as you can see just through a basic Google chart. In the monthly, it's been kind of slow. A lot of the tech companies tapered off in the last couple weeks, but they only tapped down to their moving average. They never really broke below it, and then now you got this big news coming up, and you got triple witching, and you got all these other news factors coming into play that NVIDIA could be seeing its all-time high potentially again into the end of the year. It might seem a little silly, but I mean, if you look at the charts from the multi-year span, it's really only been going up since 2016. The only time it tapered off basically was a little bit into 2019, but so did the rest of the market, and then it continued back up into 2020. I feel it might cool off a little bit more, but in the long term, investing in NVIDIA might be a good idea for you. Hopping into a little bit of the differences here, according to The Verge, you have ARM, the architect of the smartphone era. ARM authors the instruction sets and blueprint and core designs for mobile systems on a chip, which companies like Qualcomm, Apple, Samsung, and until recently Huawei then licensed and developed into products that power iPhones, Galaxies, and Pixels. So ARM is a very big company in regards to producing that kind of stuff. With NVIDIA doing the acquisition, NVIDIA might be the one to help push that expansion further out. So there's a very, very big market share value in this acquisition. At which point this acquisition goes through, you could see a significant boost in NVIDIA's share price. You'll probably see a massive run in a 1 day span, and then it'll cool off, trim a little bit, and then continue up. But once this deal is through, that's a verified acquisition of a $40 billion company. ARM needs more brawn if it's going to accomplish the long-held goal of expanding beyond the mobile realm. And essentially, NVIDIA might help them do that in that aspect. You got every smartphone, along with majority of tablets, all running that ARM-based processor. Intel gracelessly flopped in its repeated attempts to cram x86, the competing instruction set to ARM. So you got Intel trying to compete, not doing so hot, according to The Verge here. And then you have, AMD making a lot of progress, but ARM is still the dominating factor in this kind of niche. And essentially, the chips into connected devices, and now ARM is in a comfortable monopoly, but it's going to just expand more and be more valuable to NVIDIA shareholders. This is a big, big acquisition for a tech company. This is $40 billion. This isn't a multi-million-dollar contract. This isn't just a few billion-dollar contract. This is $40 billion that NVIDIA is investing. It's very confident in making this purchase from Softbank. You got Intel, of course. Intel kind of been struggling lately. I don't know if you guys really follow along with that. It's been a little bit iffy. They have been promising and delaying different things, and it finally took a little bit of a hit recently. AMD kind of acquired some market share, so you saw on one day where Intel was down 11, 12%, AMD was up 11, 12%. They're kind of more direct competitors to each other. NVIDIA is like the powerhouse now with ARM acquisition. If that goes through, that's a significant value boost for NVIDIA. AMD, they say arguably the most conventional tracks right now is being followed by AMD. The new Ryzen 3000 series ticks off the usual checkboxes by introducing AMD's first consumer-grade 12-core processor, shrinking the manufacturing process down to 7nm and undercutting the comparable Intel turn-up on price, except for the 7nm number, it's really not flashy stuff. AMD is focusing on the fundamentals, hoping and expecting that this is just making better processors will set a good steed to sell more of them than ever before. In the future, according to The Verge, it's rare to see ARM, Intel, and AMD overlap their announcements quite so neatly as they have in the recent weeks. Through the coincidence of their timing shouldn't be misconstrued as uniformity in the new stuff they have to offer, other than treating laptops as essential to our mobile computing future. The three companies have taken very different approaches. So you kind of see that Intel and AMD are sort of more closely tied, whereas NVIDIA is its own beast. It's valued significantly more. The ARM acquisition will give it a lot more unique market share to that aspect. So you might see AMD and Intel take a hit, but not nearly as much of a rotational between the three as you've seen between Intel and AMD in the most recent weeks here, where they took, like I mentioned, they took that massive hit there temporarily. And then, of course, Intel, it's not going to go out of business, but it's struggling. AMD has a nice value, but it's been pushing at least well beyond what I feel their future valuation is. It's sort of like a mini Tesla in regards to they're getting kind of absurd in their valuations, so AMD might be cooling off. NVIDIA, I feel, has a lot of promise, even at this share price, especially if it considers splitting at some point. That's going to attract a lot of new investors. I don't know if that's something that they're considering, but you had, recently Apple splitting and Tesla splitting to try to attract more investors to that particular company. NVIDIA split would be a big thing, even if they did a 1-4 split. That would strongly appeal to shareholders to make them want to hold and see that future growth come into play when they do this acquisition with ARM Holdings. At this point, SoftBank seems to really, really want to get rid of the ARM holdings just for more liquidity purposes, not because ARM is a bad investment. I mean, they bought it in 2016 for 32 billion. They're considering selling it to NVIDIA for 40 billion. That's an 8 billion return on investment in just 4 years. That's a significant, return, and they're just trying to more diversify their assets. They're a bank that invests to make profit. NVIDIA is a company that focuses specifically on these sectors. So it is the most beneficial thing that NVIDIA could do, the most beneficial thing that SoftBank can do to bring more value to both companies, because SoftBank will get that liquidity, but NVIDIA will get that, that future market share, that future growth into that company. And then it might progress into something much more significant than we've ever thought to expect from NVIDIA. NVIDIA is a massive company as it is, but this is only going to add to that market share and that share value, putting this potentially into even more multiple billions of dollars that they can profit from. Thanks for listening in to this video. If you guys have any questions in regards to what I mentioned, feel free to comment below. If you have any input about NVIDIA and the ARM holdings from SoftBank or NVIDIA or whatever you want to talk about, leave it in the comments below. Make sure to like this video and make sure to subscribe to this channel if this is content that you like. I will try to be making other content in regards to what's been hot news on the markets. And obviously, acquisitions are considered a very, very popular thing to invest in coming up into the future, especially with NVIDIA, especially with ARM being one of the biggest producers for that kind of aspect of smartphones and tablets and laptops. A lot of these devices use ARM technology, so this is a very, very important acquisition for tech. So it's a very good idea to focus very closely on what this might do for NVIDIA's share price. Currently trading at $485.14. A little bit of a drop off because tech took a drop off in the past week or two. But, last 6 months just been up and up and up. Year to date, yearly, 5 years, NVIDIA is not going to be breaking down anytime soon. You might see a bit of a taper off, but I feel that the best thing that NVIDIA can do is basically do that split. It will attract a lot of new investors. But thank you for listening in. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys later.